I'd like to talk about the cabinet of Dr. Caligari. The story is Dr. Caligari comes to town along with a sleepwalker named Cesar, who he keeps in a box. For their act, Dr. Caligari awakens Cesar, who then answers questions about the future. Alan and Francis are in the audience, and Alan asks how long he will live. Cesar replies, "Until dawn." At dawn, we see Alan murdered in a shadowy shot. Francis, Alan's friend, decides to prove Cesar is the killer. So Alan spends the night watching through Dr. Caligari's window. The doctor is sleeping in a chair, and Cesar is sleeping in his cabinet. Jane is a woman that Alan and Francis are competing for. So Alan is watching Cesar sleep, and at the same time, Cesar is sneaking into Jane's house with a large knife to kill her. Cesar can't do it and ends up carrying Jane off with her family in pursuit. But Cesar is still asleep. What? Cesar drops Jane, runs away, and then falls to his death. The police come to Dr. Caligari's, and when they open Cesar's cabinet, they see Francis has actually been watching a dummy of Cesar all night. Dr. Caligari makes his escape, and Francis chases him to an insane asylum. Francis finds out that Dr. Caligari is in fact the director of the asylum. While the director sleeps that night, Francis and the asylum staff search through his papers. They find out he's obsessed with being Dr. Caligari, an ancient mythological figure, and of having a sleepwalker do his terrible bidding. Cesar's body is brought to the asylum, and the director loses it. He screams, "I must become Caligari!" When he becomes violent, the asylum staff put him in a straitjacket and place him in a secure room. In the final sequence, we see the patients at the asylum. Jane is sitting on a big chair, wearing a tiara and believing she is a queen. Cesar is not asleep, but standing quietly with a bouquet of flowers. When the kindly director comes into the room, Francis starts screaming that this is Dr. Caligari. After Francis becomes violent, the orderlies put a straitjacket on him and take him to his room. The director, who now looks different and quite normal, says of Francis, "I understand now his delusion and how I may help him." Thompson et al. Explained in our textbook, the 1920s saw the beginning of an independent experimental cinema, including surrealism, Dadaism, and abstract films. Expressionist film reveals the inner feelings of the characters. German expressionist films proved to be an export commodity, and Dr. Caligari's popularity helped to open trade with other countries. This film is considered a classic and has helped draw worldwide attention to the artistic merit of German cinema. It has had a major influence on American films, particularly in the genres of horror and film noir. Dr. Caligari was voted number 12 on the prestigious Brussels 12 list at the 1958 World Expo. It ranks number 22 on Rotten Tomatoes' 30 best films of all time. Roger Ebert called it the first true horror film. Film reviewer Danny Perry called it cinema's first cult film and a precursor to art house films. In his book, Caligari to Hitler, Siegfried Krasauer argues that the rise of Nazism was foretold by the preceding years of German cinema. Caligari could be thought to represent Hitler, while the sleepwalker might represent the German people under his spell. Another idea is that Dr. Caligari was a puppet master representing totalitarianism, and he wished to eliminate any other leaders. This film was quite revolutionary and introduced many new techniques. Iris shots and vignettes with darkened corners were used extensively. Early use of non-linear storytelling. The entire story is shown in flashbacks. The film is dyed in 3 colors and sets were hand painted on canvas. The audience has to decide what is real and what is not. It breaks from reality by using extreme visual style. The set design gives it an eerie quality. The crooked doors do operate, and people actually do perch on the incredibly high chairs. It introduced the idea of a twist. An early use of special effects was used as Caligari appears written over and over in the air and on the walls as the doctor goes down the street. It is a week before Halloween, and this film is perfect viewing for this time of year. Although not terrifying by today's standards, it is creepy, but in a good way.